This story doesn't start with a headline, it starts with silence. The kind of silence that makes people uncomfortable. The kind that makes timelines blur, photos feel staged, and questions get louder every single day. Because when Tom Bower speaks, things don't just shake, they crack open. And what he's just put back on the table about Archie and Lilibet has reignited a fire the palace thought had been buried forever.
Absolutely. What we're really now seeing is that both of them, having posed as the victim for so long, are really the aggressors.
Harry's book, the biography, I mean, that's going to be devastating for the royal family because that's the only way that Harry can make his income.
The construction of her father, that man who in the end was abandoned by Meghan for months before.
Well, I think Harry is a very complicated person because he's not very intelligent and undoubtedly remains damaged by...
But ever since Meghan left Britain and then did the Oprah Winfrey interview, it's been really poisonous.
It was very early on in their relationship when Harry is bowled over by Meghan, is desperately in love.
They don't want to come back in. They want all the perks, the titles, and the baubles and the power, but don't want to actually...
I mean, she stood up at the United Nations. That was her most famous appearance before meeting Harry.
For Meghan, I almost understood. She's a Hollywood B-list to be charitable actress. She was a social climber.
And I think that it's really quite sad that I won't be able to show, my children my homeland.
Given the security that you desire, if they deem that that there's a threat to you.
I choose people who don't want to be written about on the whole, and whose lives are shrouded in mystery.
This isn't random internet noise. This isn't trolls throwing stones for attention. This is years of unanswered questions stacking on top of each other. Missing photos, unclear timelines, shifting stories, and a couple who respond to everything except this. And the silence? It's deafening. Every time Harry and Meghan refuse to address it, curiosity doesn't die, it mutates, it sharpens, it spreads. Because when public figures build their entire brand on truth and authenticity, but freeze up at the most basic questions, people notice.
William didn't know that Harry and Meghan had already recorded their poison.
Now let's talk about what really rattled observers. The distance. Not just emotional, visible. Barely any photographs of these children with their own grandfather. No candid family moments. No natural integration into the royal orbit the way every other grandchild has experienced. And that's where the whispers turned into full-blown unease. Because this isn't about privacy anymore. This is about absence. And absence always invites speculation.
The whole description she does of the Portland hospital, the birth, that was completely fabricated.
Haven't had any verification of who gave birth to those children, which is actually quite mandatory.
They kept Archie's birth private for over 8 hours. They did not tell people that he was actually born in a rock.
Here's where Tom Bower enters like a wrecking ball. He doesn't chase trends. He digs where others refuse to go. He openly admits he chooses subjects wrapped in secrecy, people who guard their lives aggressively. And when he starts circling a story, it's because something doesn't add up. According to what he's highlighted, the narrative surrounding Archie's arrival already had cracks from day one. The Portland hospital story, it doesn't line up. Dates, times, announcements, they don't match the version the public was fed. Sources close to the situation suggest Meghan never planned to deliver there at all. The original plan, according to whispers that never went away, was a home birth. Yet the public announcement painted a completely different picture. And once you start comparing official statements with how events actually unfolded, the contradictions become impossible to ignore. Royal births follow protocol. Rigid, predictable, rehearsed. But this one didn't. The announcement came late. The wording felt evasive. The sequence felt off, and when people noticed, instead of clarity, they got deflection. Social media didn't invent these questions. It reacted to them. Forums began connecting dots. Old screenshots resurfaced. People realized they weren't alone in feeling something wasn't right. And once that door opened, there was no shutting it again.
They want to be powerful, and they want to hide their secrets, and I just love digging away to find out what they don't want us to know.
Now let's talk about the images, because this is where the conversation really exploded. Pregnancy photos that didn't feel natural, bumps that appeared different sizes within the same week, angles that felt overly controlled, overly choreographed, not posed, managed, and people noticed. Side-by-side comparisons went viral. Theories spread faster than the palace could shut them down. Then came the announcement itself. No easel, no traditional reveal, no iconic hospital step moment. Every royal baby before had followed the same script for generations. This one rewrote it completely, without explanation. And that's when the hospital photos became the loudest silence of all. There were none. No waving, no steps, no shared moment with the public, just a tightly controlled reveal that looked nothing like any royal birth before it. And the more Harry and Meghan insisted everything was normal, the less normal it looked. Because tradition wasn't broken quietly, it was discarded. Now let's zoom out, because this isn't just about logistics. It's about pattern. William and Catherine's children? Documented. Integrated, visible at family events. Archie and Lilibet, nearly invisible. No warm moments with King Charles, no candid family interactions, no public bonding that usually comes naturally. And before anyone says America, this started before the move. Even during UK visits, this separation remained. And that's when observers started asking the uncomfortable question, is this privacy or is this distance? Because protecting children doesn't require erasing their existence from the family record. That level of separation goes beyond shielding, it suggests avoidance. And here's where the story turns darker, because while the speculation grows, Harry himself appears to be unraveling. Sources paint a picture of a man consumed, endless scrolling, sleepless nights, obsessively reading what strangers are saying about his family. The irony is brutal. This is the same man who built a platform around mental health, who preached healing, therapy, awareness, and now the very narrative that gave his life meaning, fatherhood, is being questioned. Friends describe mood swings, paranoia, withdrawal. He's either seen as a man who doesn't know what's happening or one who knows exactly what's happening and is helping maintain it. Neither version helps him. Silence keeps both interpretations alive. Meanwhile, Meghan's response couldn't be more different. Cold, controlled, strategic. No emotional public unraveling, no visible panic, just suppression. Stories get shut down, questions get buried, critics get silenced. But here's the problem. Suppression never kills curiosity. It feeds it. When someone works this hard to stop a conversation, people assume there's something worth hiding, and the harder she pushes, the louder the questions get. This isn't just gossip anymore, it's a credibility crisis. A couple who left the royal family preaching transparency now operate behind thicker walls than the institution they condemn. And that contradiction? It's doing irreversible damage. By the time this story reached the royal family, the damage was already done. Because when the palace goes quiet, it's never accidental. King Charles didn't rush to shut this down. He didn't issue warm reassurances. He didn't flood the public with grandfatherly images the way he has with William's children. And that absence, it spoke louder than any statement ever could. Compare the optics. George, Charlotte, and Louis are everywhere. Balconies, Christmas walks, trooping the color, candid moments that feel effortless and organic. You see a family that exists together. But Archie and Lilibet, they sit outside that frame entirely. No birthday posts, no official acknowledgements, no shared milestones. It's as if they live in a parallel royal universe, one that never overlaps with Windsor reality. And here's the part that makes even neutral observers uncomfortable. Distance like that doesn't happen by accident. Either Harry and Meghan are enforcing a level of separation so extreme it borders on erasure, or the palace itself is keeping emotional and public distance intentionally. Both possibilities are disturbing, because grandparents don't usually vanish from their grandchildren's lives unless something is very, very wrong. And if this were purely about geography, technology would bridge the gap. Video calls, shared images, quiet acknowledgments, none of that appears. Which brings us to the theory nobody wanted to say out loud, but everyone whispers now. What if the palace is protecting itself? Because once questions arise that could impact legitimacy, succession, or future complications, royal institutions don't wait for chaos, they preempt it. Silence becomes strategy. Distance becomes insulation. And suddenly, the absence starts looking less like neglect and more like containment. Now, layer in the money, because nothing exposes pressure faster than financial reality. When Harry and Meghan walked away from royal life, they also walked away from guaranteed structural support. The safety net vanished overnight. What replaced it? Netflix, publishing deals, public storytelling, endlessly monetized. On paper, it looked brilliant. In practice, it locked them into a trap. Those contracts don't pay for privacy. They pay for access. Netflix doesn't want vague philanthropy. They want intimacy, conflict, drama. And every time Harry or Meghan opens their mouth, they have to give something without giving too much. That balancing act is destroying them. Security costs alone are astronomical. The Montecito estate bleeds money. Staff, legal battles, PR suppression, all of it stacks up. Walking away isn't an option anymore. because stepping back would mean refunds, penalties, lawsuits, and a lifestyle collapse that would expose just how dependent their independence really is. So they stay visible, they stay controversial, they stay trapped in the machine, and that machine is grinding their credibility into dust. This is where Harry's unraveling becomes impossible to ignore. He didn't sign up for this version of exile. He wanted freedom, not suspicion. Healing, not endless interrogation. Fatherhood was supposed to be his redemption, his proof that he'd broken the cycle. Now, it's the very thing being dissected. Friends describe him as exhausted, obsessive, hyper-aware of every comment, every thread, every rumor. The man who preached mental wellness is now visibly deteriorating under scrutiny he cannot escape. And the cruelest part? His silence makes him look guilty no matter which version people believe. If he's unaware, he looks naive. If he's aware, he looks complicit. Either way, his image collapses. And the longer he stays silent, the more power the narrative takes away from him. Meghan, meanwhile, is playing an entirely different game. Where Harry reacts emotionally, she moves strategically. Lockdowns, suppression, legal pressure. The approach is clear: don't engage, control. But control without transparency never convinces anyone. It only confirms suspicion. Because if everything were straightforward, why not clarify? Why not provide the same documentation every other royal birth had? Why not end the speculation once and for all? That refusal is what transformed fringe chatter into mainstream conversation. News panels picked it up. Social media exploded. Casual royal watchers started asking the same questions hardcore skeptics had asked years earlier. And once mainstream curiosity kicks in, there's no rewinding the clock. Here's the brutal truth. This entire crisis could have been ended early. Not with emotional appeals, not with lawsuits, not with suppression, with clarity. But clarity never came. Instead, every attempt to shut people up amplified the noise. And now, the Sussex brand, built on authenticity, honesty, and transparency, stands exposed as more closed off than the monarchy they fled. That contradiction is lethal, because once the public believes you're hiding something, even the truth won't save you later. Trust doesn't bounce back, it fractures. And in the middle of all this, 2 children. Children who didn't choose secrecy, didn't choose exile, didn't choose to become mystery figures before they could even speak. They're growing up separated from their grandfather, distant from extended family, and surrounded by questions that won't disappear simply because their parents refuse to answer them. And that's the real tragedy. Not the gossip, not the theories, not the speculation, but the consequences. Because deflection isn't protection, it's escalation. And every unanswered question adds another crack to a story that once promised freedom, but now feels like collapse. The Sussexes had a choice: clarify and move forward, or stay silent and let the story write itself. They chose silence. And silence, in this case, is doing the loudest damage of all. Loudest damage of all. Loudest damage of all.